Hello friends, welcome back to your UPSC. Today we are going to start with environmental geography, and in environmental geography we will be studying influence of man on ecology and environment. Then we are going to study environmental hazard, and at last environmental management. So let's get started. So, starting with influence of man and ecology and environment, man on ecology and environment. See, the relation between natural environment, and man is quite complex, and we can see this relation from time immortals. Okay, the man, it influence physical environment, and physical environment, it influences man. So both of these things, they influence each other. Okay, so the how does environment influences man? See, if we look into, let's say, clothing part, clothing. Okay, so in different climatic conditions, the clothing of men is different. Okay, so like in tundra region, sorry, like in uh, the areas which are having severe winters. Okay, or like in temperate region and above this frigid zone, the people will be wearing woolens. Okay, while in equatorial region and tropical region, people will prefer to wear cotton. Okay, so clothing of human is influenced by environment. Okay, likewise food habit, shelter, and other things, even our culture is also influenced by environment. And how does man influences physical environment? See, after industrialization, has brought about various changes and modification in the environment and ecology to adapt himself according himself, or we can say for his luxury. Okay, so for his luxury and for more sustainability, man has influenced environment. Like how, see, the forests are being cut. Okay, the patch of forest is being cleared for settlement, for agriculture. Okay, and there are various other things, there are various other examples which we can say about men influencing environment. Okay, so both of them, they influence each other. But during last 150 year, the relationship between man and physical environment has changed substantially. Okay, like how, see, in Paleolithic era and early Neolithic era, man was like all other animals only. It was dependent on trees and other animals for its food and shelter. Okay, and on natural things, man was dependent upon all the natural things. Okay, for its food and shelter and other things. But later, we can say in 8000 BC, in Neolithic era only, what happened? Men started to domesticate animal, and agriculture was also, the evidences of agriculture, beginning of agriculture are also seen during this time. So likewise, the man started influencing environment in much more, and it was having much more impact than all other fauna. Okay, now, but the major impact of man's domination, or we can say man's influence over environment, can be seen after industrial revolution, which started in 1779 in Europe. The man became a powerful agent, and it changed alter the physical environment for suiting his needs. Okay, at that time, due to substantial subsequent and substantial advancement in science and technology, the frontier of knowledge were expanded beyond the cosmic space, and physical environment of the earth was transformed beyond recognition. Like mega cities were built up, then we had modern towns, lands were converted into roads. Okay, and sea route they were used for uh, navigation purpose and all that. Okay, and mining was done, then petroleum extraction was done even from land and as well as from the sea. So everything was influenced by man, and the substantial change was noticed in last 150 years. Okay, now some major modifications of ecosystem are: first is modification of ecosystem. See, the impact of man on physical environment is quite substantial, and the process of human induced changes are getting accelerated. Okay, so some of the impacts on ecosystem are: first is we can see eutrophication. See, as I've told you earlier, eutrophication it occurs when some nutrients like phosphorus, nitrates, they are introduced in any any ecosystem like lake, ponds, etc., etc. Okay, when they are introduced, they induce the growth of flora and fauna. Okay, so because of which what happens, we have quite a lot of algae and other fauna and flora growing, and this growth, it hinders the growth of existing flora and fauna. Okay, they increase the biological oxygen demand, BOD is increased. Okay, and the nutrition, or we can say fixed amount of nutrients or fixed amount of nutrition that is available in there, is distributed among more. Okay, so like consider it was distributed among four, but now it is distributed among more. Okay, so because the nutrition is distributed among more candidates, so because of which the nutrition gained by each individual is less. Okay, so this is what is eutrophication. And various example like Lake Eyre, Lake of Tropical Latitude, Dal Lake, Wooler Lake, Lake of Hyderabad, like we have Loktak Lake. Okay, they are adversely affected by the process of eutrophication. Then we have effect on individual species. See, many plants and animal species have been declared as endangered species. Some of the uh, very very exotic species have also been declared as extinguished, or many of the species have come into endangered species. Okay, so this is how our ecosystem is being modified because of influence of men on our ecosystem. Okay, then we have modification of landform. So modification of landform has both direct and indirect impact. So first we will talk about direct influence, or we can say direct effect. See, mining and quarrying, it leads to formation of open pits and shaft mining at places. Okay, now we have various places like Ruhr Basin, Saar Basin, Midland, Britain, and then Saar Basin is in Germany. Okay, then in Russia, Raniganj, Jharia, etc. So these open pits, they have resulted into serious damage of landscape, and along with the serious damage to that particular landscape, the neighboring areas, okay, the neighboring areas are also either they are uh, currently also in grave danger, and if not, they are on the verge of being endangered. Okay, so that is direct influence. Another direct influence is deforestation and introduction of exotic species and animals in different habitat. It has influenced the ecosystem. Okay, like we have Ishornia that was introduced in India, because of which many of our native species were influenced and they were damaged by the introduction of this exotic species. Then we have overgrazing of pasture and development of fields on slope, and because of this we have accelerated rate of soil erosion and deposition, and this is also causing landslides and other hazards. Okay, now afforestation in Caucasus mountain, Ural, Appalachian mountain area in China, Japan has influenced degraded forest landscape. So this direct influence is not only in negative manner, man has also influenced the environment in positive ways. Okay, so afforestation has improved the uh, quality of degraded forest landscape. Then man has reclaimed the land from sea, like the Netherlands, Mexico, Mumbai, Tokyo have been reclaimed substantial area from the sea. Okay, then we have subsistence through mining, especially in limestone topography. Okay, then we have construction of railways, roads, highways, embankments, canals, then dams. These construction are also influencing our landforms. Why? See, because we have to build any of these infrastructure so to build these infrastructures we have to first destroy the existing natural landscape that is present here. Okay, then only we can construct some of the infrastructures here, like we have dams. When we construct the dam, if this is the river route, we have to divert the river route to the other side. Okay, so that the water it gets collected in that reservoir only. Okay, then we have seen the direct influence or direct effect. Now we will look into indirect impacts. Indirect impacts, like we have mainly on slopes and river channels. Okay, so we have inferences with the natural vegetation. Okay, interference with the natural vegetation. There is direct relation between felling of trees and rate of evaporation on hill slopes. Like how? See, this is the slope. Okay, and because of trees, what will happen is we have process of interception that is occurring. Okay, so because of trees, the water, the pace of movement of water is slowed down. Okay, so because the pace of water movement is slowed, so the water is not able to erode as much as amount of land as it was able to erode when the land is clear. Okay, so when we have like fallow land, then the water will move and the water will have more velocity, and because of which it will be able to erode more amount of soil or top layer. Okay, now the roots they bind the soil. Okay, this is one of the factor. Then because of having trees, interception process is done, because of which the movement of water is slow. So because of roots as well as slow movement of water, the rate of erosion is very less when we have trees that are planted. Okay, so the natural vegetation and soil erosion, they are influenced. Okay, soil degradation is influenced by removal of forest. Okay, then we have multiple rills, gullies and bad land that are formed due to man's over interaction with nature in hills, plains and forest area. Like we have Chambal riverine, we have southern Dakota. Okay, there is increase in sedimentation load of rivers. Okay, see, because of more erosion, the load carried by river will be more. Okay, and if the load carried by river will be more, then obviously the deposition will also be more. And when the deposition is more, so the area where the river will deposit its load at the end, so this area will become overloaded. Okay, so there is increased sedimentation load, and the best example that we can see is Wangho Valley, Wangho River. Okay, so here we have so much amount of load that the government has to take action. Okay, then we have rivers of Southeast Asia, then Amazon, Parana, Ganga, and Congo. So these rivers, they are facing the difficulty of overloading by rivers. Okay, then wind deflation. Now, due to overgrazing, the wind deflation, overgrazing has resulted into wind deflation in many areas of the world. Okay, like we have Dust Bowl in Egypt, America, Sudan, Libya, Thar Desert. Okay, so these are product of overgrazing. Okay, then we have coastal erosion. Now, construction of seaport urban centers along the sea coast have accelerated the rate of marine erosion. Okay, because we have fallow land, so this land is easily washed away by the waves and marine action. Okay, and this is also eroding the soil. So this is how landforms are influenced, and because of erosion and depositional process of these agents and their faster pace, we are having great amount of modification in greater pace as it used to happen previously. Okay, now we will look into modification of atmosphere. See, man has affected the atmosphere through pollution. Pollution includes both solid pollution as well as liquid particles such as sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen like NO, NO2, NO3, then we have carbon monoxide, etc. So if we summarize the impact of man on environment, basically on atmosphere, then we can say that global warming is one of the factor, one of the effects, and because of global warming we have sea level change. See, in global warming, CO2 has increased in atmosphere by 150% after industrial revolution, which was started in 1779. Okay, so in 1780s to 1880s the rise in temperature was 0.5 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, then from 1880s to 1980s the rise in temperature was 1 point, sorry, 1 degree Fahrenheit. Then in 1980s to 1990s, the rise in temperature was 1 degree Fahrenheit. So these are in 100 years. Okay, but this is in just 10 years. And like in 22nd century, we can see that this is 21st century, but when the 22nd century will start, we can see that the rate of temperature that we are also going through in 10 years will be rate of increase of temperature will be 4 to 9 degree Fahrenheit within 10 years. Okay, and because of this rise in temperature, half of the world population will be adversely affected, or we can say it will disappear. Why it will disappear? Because because of rise in temperature, we will have rise in sea level, and most of the area of the world, land area, will be covered with water. Okay, and because of this, what will happen? Not only flora and fauna, but human itself will also be adversely affected. Okay, next is acidification. Acidification as a concept, it emerged as a global problem in late 1960s. See, in acidification, what exactly is the process? We'll look at here. Industries, we can say all the pollutants from cities. Okay. Let us consider cities. Okay. Or we can say from everywhere, it is emitted. Okay. And it is taken away to other places with wind. Okay. And this emission, it contains oxides of sulfur as well as nitrogen. Okay. Now the dry deposits are deposited nearby, and the others, they are taken away by the winds. Now because of movement and rising, these pollutants along with the air, they rise and they condense, and because of condensation they form cloud. Okay. Now these clouds, they precipitate in the form of acid rain, and this leads to the deposition of bad deposits over this area. Okay, so this is the process of acidification, and this process, in this process, gases involved are sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and low pH value clouds. Okay, so this process is influencing. Then we have salination and waterlogging. Salination and waterlogging is like irrigated land of the world's cultivated land is 12%. Okay, of which the land adversely affected is 7%. See, now according to the Earth's report in 2007, the scenario of different countries was like Pakistan is 65% affected, Iran is 50% affected, then we have Egypt, that is 35% affected, China is also 35% affected, Central Asian Republic is 30% affected by this salination and waterlogging, and then India is also 30% affected. Sudan is 29% affected by this problem. Okay, so here what will happen is, due to excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides and irrigation, now what will happen? This is the farmland. Okay, this is the farmland. Consider this as the farmland. So these are crops. Okay, now along with water, the fertilizer that are being introduced in the crops, they are penetrated deep inside. Okay, and because of which, not only the top layer but also the inner layer of soil, it gets salinized. Okay, the salts, more of the salts are added to increase the nutrition value of soil so that we can get more and more yield, but this is resulting into excessive of excess of some of the nutrients in the soil, leading to salination of soil. Okay, and same is the problem with waterlogging. Okay, now because of irrigation, we are like we are not judiciously using water, and many problems, like we are, because of clay soil and other problems, the water is logged and water is not able to penetrate inside the soil. Okay, so water is logged here, so this problem is of water logging. Okay, so these are also the problems that are faced. Then we have next very important problem is ozone depletion. So in ozone depletion, it is mainly resulted due to chlorofluorocarbon, which was included in refrigerator, formed plastic cleansers, air conditioners, etc. Okay, so the ozone hole was discovered between it occurred between 1977 to 1985. About 40% decrease in ozone was observed over Antarctica. Okay, so here what happens is we have CFCs that are introduced, mainly emitted by industries, refrigerators, aerosol propellants, okay, in troposphere. Now, these CFCs they rise, and CFCs release chlorine, and chlorine depletes ozone layer by reacting with ozone. Ozone is O3. Okay, so what happens is this O3 in normal process it breaks down into O2 and O by ultraviolet rays, and then again it is joined by, or we can say it is reversible process. So ultraviolet rays they break down ozone as well as they make ozone layer. So this is how ultraviolet rays are absorbed by ozone layer, and hence ultraviolet radiations are not able to come to land. Now, because of CFCs, the chlorine is released, and this chlorine it reacts with ozone, okay, to form O2 plus OCl. Okay. Now, this chlorine will again uh, separate from oxygen, and this oxygen will react with other, or will add up with other mono oxygen atom, and they will form O2. Okay, so this is how oxygen is formed, but O3 is depleted in this process. Okay, and this is how the layer of ozone it is getting depleted, and the ozone layer and ultraviolet rays, and basically ultraviolet radiations, B radiations, are able to penetrate, and they are not only affecting the other things of the environment, they are also affecting human health. Okay, then the next effect is desertification we have already done. See, because of cutting down of forest and deforestation, the desert land is increasing. Okay, the area of deserted land is increasing. Okay, so initially the limit was this much, but due to deforestation the plants are not able to stop, or we are not able to stop the winds, and because of this the desert area is rising. This process is known as desertification. So this problem of desertification can be seen in like almost every desert. So basically main problem is with Sahara, Thar desert, then we have Kalahari desert. Next is environmental pollution. Okay, then we have deposition of waste material. I have also given the example of gyres, plastic islands. That was These plastic islands are formed in Pacific Ocean, and because of formation of gyres. Okay, and these gyres they are formed, and they deposit whole load of plastic and other waste material which was dumped into the oceans, and they are collected, and they have now formed islands, and these islands are very not only problem to marine animal, but they are also releasing toxics which are problematic to flora and fauna living on land. Okay, now because of modification of impact of man on environment, we have decline in soil fertility, like we have acidification of soil, we have alkaline soil, we have saline soil. So soil fertility, natural fertile soil, is being degraded. Then we have ecological crisis because of this, and this is also a danger to humanity. Now, as we have done the impact of man on environment and ecology. Now we will look into various environmental hazards. So environmental hazards are generally referred to as short-term or long-term geophysical events that pose both economic and physical threat to people. Okay. Then environmental hazard, they include earthquake, volcanoes, volcanic eruption, drought, flood, epidemics, high winds, tropical cyclones, tsunami. Then we have transgression of seas, waterlogging, plants and animal invasion, and lightning, thunder, etc. So these problems, they influence both physical threat to people as well as they stop their economic life also. Okay, and thus they influence people both physically as well as economically. Like if we take example of floods, so floods actually when they occur, they this is the river. So in rainy season, this path of the river, it increases because of huge amount of load of water. Okay, now because of flood, the neighboring areas, they are affected. Okay, so the shelters are destroyed, the properties is destroyed, and the many animals and human beings and animals, they die during this process. Okay, during this hazard. Okay, so this is how flood is influencing. Then we have earthquake. Earthquake hazard, it also results into heavy casualty, like we can say, for example, 26 January 2001, the Bhuj earthquake, it killed about 30,000 people. And we have recent Nepal earthquake, which also killed huge amount of population. Okay, so this is how enormous loss of property can be seen, and property as well as life can be seen during the earthquake. Then we have landslides. Landslide, it is rapid mass movement, and because of this landslide, the whole society or whole culture is buried down in the land. Okay, so this is the slope. From here a land, uh, sorry, the land mass will slide down. Okay, so all the society that is living here, we can say culture, is destroyed. It is buried inside this land. Okay, and this also poses a high threat to life and property. Okay, now to manage or to mitigate the effect of these hazards, Government of India has created Environmental Hazard Management Department, and it is very effective and smooth in functioning to rehabilitate the affected people and to give them the suitable needs or to provide them whatever they need. Okay, and in this non-governmental organization and governmental organization, all of them are helping. Okay, now for the better management and protection of environment, we can also do something like we can economize our energy. We can economize energy, like we can use public transportation to drive fewer miles, or we can ride, we can do like carpooling or whatever, vehicle pooling, so that the burden on fuels would be less. Then we can purchase energy efficient appliances and cars and vehicles, so that the fuel that is used, the amount of fuel that is used may be reduced. And if possible, or to the extent possible, we should use all the renewable sources of energy which are eco-friendly, like we can use solar energy, wind energy, and we should buy, or we can buy or use rechargeable batteries, so that we don't have to throw the used batteries or destroyed batteries, so that the toxic emitted from these may be lowered down. Then we can check the toxic materials and pollutants like the old cans of paint, pesticides, or engine oil may be checked upon. Then we can read the labels and buy least toxic materials that are available in in the market. Then there is also a side effect, or we also pollute the environment by dry cleaning our clothes. So we may buy the clothes which do not require dry cleaning, and also if necessary, only when necessary, then only we should dry clean our clothes. Now we should also economize our water by taking uh, by using our water judiciously for whatever, like for showering or for bathing. Instead of using two buckets, we can bathe from one bucket only. And we should use or we should reuse the water. Okay, so recycling of water and reduction of water use can also be helpful. Then recycling of other materials like newspaper, cans, glasses, plastic, then cloth rags should be done, so that the burden on environment will be less. Lastly, we can prevent the life and environment by planting trees, avoiding CFCs, like by using less of propellants, aerosols, then getting involved in environmental programs like Greenpeace, etc. And not only involving, like, but also educating people, reading and listening about environment, and encouraging other people to join hand in this will also be helpful. So this was about what we can do, but due to environmental hazard, we are facing various problems, and one of the greatest problem is pollution. Pollution is basically the release of substances in the environment in wrong place or in wrong quantity, or even both. So this release of substances of in the environment in wrong place and wrong quantity is known as pollution. Okay, the pollution degrades and damages environment. It is also injurious to our health and is often an aesthetic nuisance for us. Now, the pollution in the contemporary world has different forms like biological pollution, chemical pollution, physical pollution, radioactive effects on water, air, soil, biota, etc. So, for this, various summits are also being held, like we had Earth Summit in 1992, then we have Joan's Conference in 2002, then but these world communities, they have developed sustainable and suitable strategies to reduce the level of pollution, but for that the world has to join hand, and we have to participate so that the pollution could be less. Okay, and for this, energy conservation and efficiency is required to reduce the consumption and related pollution, then climatic change, ozone depletion, air pollution, or we have ocean and water resource protection, and to check desertification. For all this, we require energy conservation and efficiency, and for this we should do environmental management. Environmental management is judicious utilization of natural resources in imperative sorry so judicious utilization of natural resources is imperative to conserve the natural resources and to assert the degradation of environment. So the basic thing is judicious utilization. So we don't have to stop utilizing all our natural resources, but even if we judiciously use our natural resources, then also we can conserve environment, and that is the basic motive of environmental management. So main objective of the environmental management or of the conservation are: first is to maintain the resilience characteristic of ecosystem. Okay, then next is to preserve our biodiversity, and lastly is to enhance the sustainability of the environment. And some of the steps which may help in the conservation of natural resources and environment are like forest conservation. So in forest conservation, as we all know, forest is a renewable but not an inexhaustible resource. Okay, so the rate of removal of forest and their complete clearance by cutting and burning has been acquainted during this has been accelerated during the last century. Okay, and because of, and why they are being cut, they are being cut to meet the needs of food and raw material demand of rapidly growing population. So because of this, we are facing lots and lots of problem of climatic change, as well as uh, we are facing the problem of deforestation, etc. So what are the steps that we can take to overcome these problems? So the first one is afforestation, or we can say reforestation. So all the fallow lands or degraded land or that are not being used must be brought under afforestation program. Okay, then other land should be used, sorry, the land that is not in use should be brought into the afforestation program, so that the main forest land, the burden on main forest land is reduced. Okay, so that is the basic thing for afforestation. Then various programs like chipko movement, green movement in Germany. Okay, so these programs should be popularized so that we can um, educate people. Then local communities should be given the charge of uh, preventing their forest. Then various laws should be passed for protection of forest. So this is how we can do afforestation and reforestation. Next is social forestry and agroforestry that we have already done. So in social forestry and agroforestry, FAO, that is Food and Agricultural Organization, has listed various programs that can be done, that is agri silviculture, agri pastoral, and agri pastoral uh, system that can need of help to meet the need of fuel, fodder, and timber in the developing social forestry and developing countries. Okay, then next is soil conservation. Now, because of anthropogenic factors and other factors like climatic, lithological, and topographic factors, along with anthropogenic factor, soil is being degraded. So, the measures that can be taken for the conservation of soil is afforestation to check soil erosion during rain and running water or by wind, then increase in percolation rate of water in soil, then steps should be taken to reduce the volume and velocity of surface runoff. Okay, then judicious utilization of land will also help in soil conservation. Then adoption of scientific rotation of crops. Okay, so because of scientific rotation of crops, the fertility of soil will be regained. Okay, so if one of the crop is like which requires nitrogen, then other crop would fix nitrogen. Okay, so leguminous crops like groundnut should be grown after wheat and rice. Okay, so that they can fix nitrogen in the soil back again, so that the fertility of soil will be replenished. Instead of using fertilizer and all, these natural methods should be used. Then next is contour farming, bounding, terracing, etc. These type of mechanical protection of mechanical protection methods should be used for prevention from soil erosion. Then land reclamation measures to develop the waterlogged and salinity, uh, alkalinity affected area. So land reclamation measures should be taken for the development of these type of areas. Lastly, the better agricultural practices and crop management should be done so that there is not much burden on land, and the soil should be the fertility of soil should remain as it is. Okay, so this was about environmental hazard and environmental management, and with this we complete our lecture. So that was all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. Now let's meet in our next class. Till then, take care and have a nice day.